Hello there guys, I'm Unstable Voltage and today I'm going to be taking a look at Stellaris, which is the new space-themed strategy game from Paradox Development Studios. Paradox are the developers who, up until recently, have made a lot of grand strategy games. You might be familiar with titles such as Europa Universalis 4, Crusader Kings 2, Victoria 2, Hearts of Iron 3, and they're currently working on Hearts of Iron 4 as well. So they've got a lot of experience with grand strategy games, but this, as far as I'm aware, is their first real stab at the 4X genre. It is a game that they claim is a mix between 4X and grand strategy. They claim it to be sort of a hybrid. I can certainly see some crossover, but in my opinion it is more of a 4X than anything else, but that is something that we will get into in the video. Before I jump in and actually show you the gameplay itself, let's just go through very quickly and have a look at a few things. First of all, there is multiplayer available. Now, I haven't played the multiplayer myself. What I am playing at the moment is a pre-release press copy, and while there are a handful of people that do have pre-release copies, there's only one or two that I actually know, so I haven't really been able to get a multiplayer game going, although there have been a few that Paradox themselves have done and streamed. If we just go and quickly have a look at the settings, there's not really an awful lot to see in here. I mean, most of it is It is a 3D game, but it's mostly viewed from a 2D plane. I mean, it's a strategy game. You don't really have that much intensity with the graphics going on. But apparently there are some performance issues. Now, it's not something that I personally have encountered, but I have spoken to numerous other people who, towards the end game, when they've got large amounts of fleets, there is some definitely noticeable frame rate lag. Also, you'll find that the processing speed for the turns and the battles can take quite a long time towards the end of the game when there is a lot of units for the AI to be dealing with. So that's something to bear in mind, as your mileage may vary, but it's not something I personally have encountered, but I haven't really had any of those big battles. So the graphics options are relatively simplistic. Sound, you've just got a few individual sliders. The sound design in this game is very, very good. The music is absolutely fantastic, very, very atmospheric, suits the game really, really well. Has just the right pace to be somewhere between calming, which is very nice for playing a strategy game, and somewhat frantic when you've got space battles going on. That is something that I really like. And then gameplay, you've got your auto saves. You can actually save to the cloud. There is a tutorial. Now, as usual with Paradox games, the tutorials aren't really fantastic. Again, with this pre-release, there is no sort of tutorial campaign or tutorial missions. The only thing you have is what I would call a context-sensitive in-game tutorial. So basically, you have an advisor. You can set this between full, tips, and none. But you basically have an advisor, and when you click on certain things, the advisor will pop up and tell you how it works and what you need to do with it. But it does rely on you, the player, to actually go and explore the interface and actually click on windows and open things up before the advisor actually tells you what any of them do. So the settings are quite simple. Just before I jump into a game that I've already started, we're just going to have a look at the options for a new game, because there's a few things that I want to be able to show you. So first of all, if you look down on the left hand side of the screen, you can see that there are a number of starting races that you get to play as. These are some ones that have been ready created for you by Paradox themselves. And what you also have the ability to do is you can hit the random button and create a completely new and random race. Or you can hit this create new button. You can create a new empire. It allows you to select your appearance, which is not just a cosmetic thing. You actually get to choose what your race is, whether you are a mammalian species, or a reptile, or a bird, or an insect, or a mollusk, or even a fungus. And then within each of those, you have got several different races that you can choose. Now, like I said, mostly it is cosmetic, but there are certain things that go on with relationships. So, for example, if you are a xenophile, which means you absolutely love alien races, you're more likely to get a relationship boost with someone who is a completely different species. Whereas if you're a xenophobe, you're more likely to absolutely hate someone who is a completely different species. So you've got all of those things. You can also go and change things like colour variants. Some things do give you the option for male and female, although some of the creatures it doesn't really matter. You can go ahead and name your race. There is a random list that will generate names for you. And you can actually choose which type of names lists you want, because the different types of aliens have different naming conventions. Then you get to choose your traits. Now, this is one of the things that I like the most about this game. When you create a species, you have these traits. Some of them are negative and some of them are positive. They actually, the positive ones cost points, the negative ones give you points back, but there's a limit to the number that you can take. And some of these are really good because they allow you to almost roleplay the game, because these are your racial traits, which determine what your actual race of people is like. But then when you get down into, where are we, your government and ethics, you get to choose these things, and these allow you to pick what type of race you are in the way that you play. And some of these things are really good. If we look here, you can see you've got things like, obviously militarist is going to be geared towards being very, very aggressive, because it gives you more army damage. But there are things like pacifist, where you do less army damage, but you get more food. So generally you are better when you're not at war. And there's also things there like collectivists and materialists and spiritualists in there as well as different government types that give you various other advantages and benefits and things like that. You can name your empire, you can choose your flag. There's a massive amount of options and different colour variations. So there's a lot of customization that you can do. You've also got your starting technology. So there's 3 types of tech that you can use within the game for weapons in their most basic forms: projectile weapons, missile weapons, and energy weapons. Then you've got your faster than light method. Now, this is the way that you actually travel around between star systems, and I'll explain this a little bit more within the game. But there are 3 basic methods. Warp travel, which is probably the most simplistic to use and recommended for new players. Then you've got hyperspace travel, and then you've got wormhole travel. And they all have their own pros and cons, but we'll go through that when we get in the game. And then you've got your ship appearance, which is just your sort of cosmetic ship type. This game is fully moddable, by the way, so I do expect that we will see many more ship types and alien races added as time goes on. And also, knowing Paradox, there will be a lot of DLC to come down the line that'll probably add more of this stuff anyway. So let's just go back out of here. One thing that you can do once you've created a race, you can actually use that race to play within a game, but you can also turn on whether or not that empire is allowed to spawn in your campaign. So what you can do, you can either turn that empire off. So this one here, this Chinor Stellar Union, this is an empire that, well, I didn't create this one, I just edited one of the pre-made ones. So we can turn it off, which means it will not be allowed to spawn in a regular game. We can turn it on, which means there's a chance it can spawn in a regular game. Or we can actually lock it on, which means if I play a new game now, these guys will definitely be in there as one of the AI players, unless I'm playing as them myself. So that is a nice little feature there. But let's go in and I'm going to load a game. One thing that I do like is that if you have multiple games on the go at the same time, it will actually split them up into different folders. So I've got 2 different games here. Each of them have their own saves, and their own saves are all stored within the individual folders, which is something that I really like. So let's go ahead and jump into a game that I have already been playing for a while. Now, like I said, Paradox claim that this is somewhere between a 4X game and a grand strategy, and I think it is more of a 4X game. So let's just go and have a quick zoom out. This is the sort of overall view of the map. Like I said, this is a game that I've been playing for a little while. The game starts in the year 2200, so I'm 86 years into the game here. And as you can see, this is the view of the galaxy. Now, this is a 600 star system galaxy. You can go all the way up to 1,000, and there are also various other options for the shape of the galaxy. This is an elliptical galaxy, but you can have 4 and 8 arm spiral galaxies. So there's various different configurations that you can have. These little green circles that you can see around the top right hand corner here, these ones represent my radar range. So this area up here is all mine. I own all of this stuff, including these guys down here. They are a vassal. So comparing this to 4X games, one thing that you're going to notice is, first of all, it is not played on a hexagonal or a square tile grid system like you would expect to see in a lot of 4X games. So you actually just move between the star systems. It makes sense. It's very, very difficult to run a space-themed game like this and actually have it run on a grid or run on, well, a grid of squares or a grid of hexagons. And another thing that sets it apart from 4X games is that it doesn't have a turn system. If I just go ahead and unpause the game, basically basically time just ticks along day by day. Now we're running at normal speed, and as you can see, the days are passing. Each day counts as a turn, and anything that you want to do, whether you are building something. So over here, for example, I have a ship, a new cruiser being built. You can see up here it's got a number counting down. That is the number of days that it's going to take to build that cruiser. So I'm not really doing anything here. I'm not having to press end turn. I've also got ships moving around. You can see I have a fleet up here that is traveling. You can also speed the game up if you're at a point of the game where there isn't an awful lot going on. You can speed up the pace of the game. You can also slow the pace of the game down and pause it like I have done here. So if you want to issue orders to something, I can pause the game. I can go to one of my ships. I can then click on something, tell them to go somewhere. So that is a system that is very similar to Paradox's other games like EU4 and CK2, where you don't actually have a turn system. But apart from the fact the game isn't played on a grid and doesn't have turns, it's pretty much very similar to most 4X games you will have played. If you're familiar with anything like Civilization 5, Age of Wonders, what else have we got? Endless Space, which obviously it is very similar to being a space-themed game. Endless Legend, Galactic Civilizations 3, Masters of Orion 3... You're going to be very, very familiar with the mechanics to this game, and you'll be able to pick it up quite easily. In a nutshell, basically, you have your research, you have science that allows you to unlock different technologies. Now, you actually have 3 different types of science within this game. You've got physics, society, and engineering. And if we go and have a look at the science panel here, you can see that we have 3 different techs being researched all at the same time. So it's very much a game based on researching different technologies. You've got a number of resources. You've got your energy credits, which pretty much work the same way as something like gold would in Civilization 5, where you use these basically to build certain units and buildings, but it's also what is used for maintenance of buildings and units. Then we've got minerals here. Minerals is the currency that is used for production, actually building ships and buildings. Then you've got influence, which is a little bit like diplomatic capital in Civilization Beyond Earth. This is used as a resource for enacting various policies. Now, policies are something that you might be familiar with if you've played games like EU4. Being able to enact a policy allows you to turn certain things on within your nation that allow you to gain certain advantages or disadvantages. Like this one, for example, I have encouraged free thought turned on, and it's costing me 1 influence per month, but it is actually giving me better research speed, but also it's allowing ethics divergence, which allows your population to sort of go off and move away from the ethos of the nation that you are playing as. So what is the basis of the game? Well, the idea of the game is you start off as a stellar empire, but you only have 1 planet. You've got your home world, and you have just basically discovered a means to travel around between the stars. And the first thing that you do is you start exploring, and you have these science ships, and these science ships are a little bit like scouts in something like Civilization. And what you do with these science ships is you send them out to other star systems, and you get them to go and survey those systems. They will then go around to all of the different stars, planets, moons, and asteroids within that system and scan them. And every now and then when they scan something, it will reveal a resource. In order to claim that resource, you need to go and use your construction ship, which is a little bit like a worker in Civilization, and you use that construction ship to go and build a mining outpost or a research outpost or whatever it is that you need to get that particular resource from that celestial body. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that you can only actually build those in territory that you own, and your borders are represented by the sort of coloured blob around your star systems. And that blob expands as time goes on, as you gain population, and also you have the ability to build colony ships once you've researched the proper tech for it, and colony ships allow you to go to different planets, and you can go to a different star system, find a planet that is suitable for colonization, and you can go and put your population on it. And that is how you grow, as well as being able to build things called frontier outposts that you can go and build on any unclaimed star system, and that will add it to your empire. So you'll see all around the galaxy here, there are a number of these icons. These are all star systems that I have already explored, and you can see that they have a number of different resources on them, like this star system here, for example, Briscoe. It's got 4 energy credits, 9 minerals, and it has 3 engineering research. It's also showing this little red planet here. This means that there is a potentially habitable planet. Now, when you first start the game, you're only able to colonize a world that is the same type of world that your species lives on. So you've got things like arid worlds, desert worlds, continental worlds, tundra worlds. So if you are playing as the humans, for example, like I am here, Earth is a continental world. So that means I prefer continental. There we go, our capital world is right there. So I can colonize continental worlds. So any planet that is green, I can colonize quite happily. These yellow ones, we've got things here like this is an ocean world. This one is an ocean world. So's that one. That's a tropical world. All worlds that are potentially habitable, but not quite ideal. And then we've got the red ones, which are things like desert worlds and arid worlds. These are ones that even if I could colonize them, even if I had the tech to, my people wouldn't necessarily be happy there. And happiness is an important thing because when you go and look at the surface of your planet, you'll see you have a number of tiles. And these tiles all give you yields of things like food, minerals, energy, science, and things like that. Now, in order for your population to actually work those tiles, you need them to remain fairly happy. As you can see, my population's happiness on this tile is 79%. And the happier they are, the more efficiently they work. If they get unhappy, they won't work as efficiently. And if you have an ethos that allows migration, you might also find that some of your population actually start to leave to go and live elsewhere. Now, these tiles, you can actually move people around. This is the home planet, so it is already full. But if we go and have a look at one of our other planets here that is just growing, you can see that some of these tiles are empty and don't produce any yields at all. Some of these tiles do produce yields, but they're not being collected because there's no population in them working them. But if we wanted to, we could go and drag population around between those tiles, and they would then collect that particular resource. We can also go ahead to these tiles, and we can put buildings on them to increase or change the resource that they're outputting. And of course, all of these cost a certain amount of resources and time to build, and then they cost a certain amount of resources every month to maintain. And what basically happens is every planet will have a certain amount of surplus food, hopefully, as long as you're not starving. And the more food you have, the more surplus food you have, the quicker your population will grow. So you can see that I have one person in this tile here. This person is currently sort of ghosted out, and that's because this is not a fully grown population yet. As it says in the red writing, the population is still growing. If we mouse over the progress bar, we can see that it's at 31.9 of 35 and it grows by 1.1 every month. And that is because of our surplus food. The more surplus food we have, the more quickly the population will grow. You also see here I'm building a robot. It is possible to actually research and build robots to work some of your tiles. It's also possible to even enslave other races and even your own people sometimes, and actually use those people to work some of the yields. There's also a few tiles here with these borders around them. These tiles are blocked, which means there's something that's stopping me from being able to put population in them. And if it has a yellow and black border like this one, it means you've already researched the tech necessary to clear it, so you can go ahead and clear the tile by selecting it and hitting the clear button, providing you can afford it. If you have a tile with a red and black border, it means that you haven't researched the tech required yet to remove it. So that's basically how you start to explore and start to expand, and eventually you will meet other civilizations. Some of them will be friendly, some of them not so much. There are major civilizations which are or major empires that are played by the AI or other players if you're playing a multiplayer game. And you'll also find that there are some primitives and minor empires which are basically AI controlled planets and races that don't interact with you on such a high level as the other AI. So they're little sort of miners that you can push around or vassalize and try and exploit, or even in the case of some of the primitives, actually try and uplift them so they become as technologically advanced as you, and hopefully you can then use them against your enemies in wartime. So the aim of the game at the moment is there's actually only 2 victory conditions. Now, I'm not sure if there are going to be any more victory conditions after the game launches, and I find it very, very odd. There are 2 types of victory condition at the moment. First of all, there is the domination victory, which is win the game by owning 40% of all colonizable planets. So if we see here, if we mouse over this, we currently own 13 out of 197 planets required. So this is a 600 star system. 40% of the colonizable worlds would be 197. Just because there's 600 stars doesn't mean that there's 600 planets, because some planets don't have any stars, some stars don't have any planets at all, and some stars do actually have multiple planets. So this is by owning 197 of those planets, by owning 40%. Now, the best way, the easiest way, the most likely way you're going to be able to do that is militaristically, going and attacking your enemies, attacking the other empires and taking their land for yourself. Whether you're taking their planets as your own, or whether you're vassalizing them into servitude, those planets will count as yours. Now, it is theoretically possible to win the game by owning 40% of all colonizable planets without going to war. It would require you having to be able to either colonize and spread out really, really quickly, which just isn't really possible, or it would require you to just be able to peacefully vassalize all of the other empires, which again is very, very unlikely, because a lot of them are going to hate you and they're never going to accept vassalization. They'll probably be a lot stronger than you. The other victory type is the conquest victory, which is win the game by conquering or subjugating all other empires. Now again, that is theoretically possible to do peacefully if you could peacefully vassalize all of the other empires. However, once more, highly unlikely. And this is the thing that I find very strange about this game. It allows you to pick an ethics set that almost forces you to roleplay the game, because the ethics that you can choose for your empire actually affect these policies. Now, these policies determine whether you are allowed to do things like slavery. Remember how I said that you could enslave different races onto your planet? So there are 3 different options for slavery. It's either prohibited, which means you cannot enslave any population at all; Xenos only, which means you can enslave alien races but not your own people; or just straight up allowed, which means you can enslave anybody. But you'll see here that these 2 options are greyed out. Because I am playing as a very particular ethos, it prohibits slavery. So in order to be able to enslave Xenos, I'd need to either have the xenophobic ethic or the fanatic xenophobe ethic. And if I wanted to allow slavery to my own race, I'd also have to be I couldn't be an individualist or a fanatic individualist. Well, I'm playing as the humans and we're individualists, which means I'm not allowed to have slaves. So the ethics that you pick at the start of the game when you create your race actually determine which of these policies you're allowed to use. So for example, purging, which means basically a little bit of ethnic cleansing, as it were, getting rid of all the aliens, or even getting rid of your own people that have a different ethical view to you. It's prohibited because of the type of ethics that I have. Orbital bombardment, I'm only allowed light and limited. I can't go full on because I'm not a militarist. So those options that you pick actually do limit the way that you play, and I find that's very, very good for role playing, and that's something that a lot of people like to do with games from Paradox, like not so much EU4 but in particular CK2. People love to role play that game. And what I find very strange is you're allowed to pick ethics that allow you to focus on research, you're allowed to pick ethics that make you a pacifist, you're allowed to pick ethics that make you a spiritualist. For those of you out there that might be Star Trek fans, what if you wanted to create what was basically the Federation? You know, you're not a warfaring people, you just want to explore, you want to be culturally enriched, you want to better yourself scientifically. But in order to win the game, you've still got to go to war with people, and I find that quite strange. Where's the scientific victory? Where's the cultural victory? Where is the quest victory? Because this game not only has the victory conditions, it also has these things here. This is a situation log, and every now and then you will get little quests to do where you're basically required to go around with your science ships and visit some of these other worlds and basically do some research there. And sometimes it might mean going into some space that is controlled by hostile space aliens. Sometimes it will mean going into another empire's territory. But why not have a sort of a quest-based victory condition like they have in Age of... not Age of Wonders, Endless Legend. Endless Legend has a quest victory condition, and it isn't in here, which is a little bit weird that I find. So I would like to see some more victory conditions in here. I think that is one of the things that is definitely lacking. Some of the other things that we'll go through. First of all, the game is played in one of two map modes. First of all, you've got the galaxy map, which is what we're looking at here, that allows us to see everything that's going on in the galaxy. The second thing is the individual star system maps, which is what you see here. You can see all of the planets and moons within this system. Now, in order to move in and out between these two map modes, you can either use the M key or the E key. One problem that I have been having myself is sometimes it's very, very difficult to zoom in onto the correct system. If you actually go and double click on a star, it will zoom into that star system. But if you're trying to find a particular thing, like if I'm trying to find my fleet, so I've got my fleet here. If I select my main fleet and then, well, they're actually between systems at the moment. So let's go ahead and select my construction ship. And if I hit E with my construction ship selected, it still doesn't take me to the construction ship. It takes me back to that last planet that I clicked on. If I double click on the construction ship, it will actually take me to the system where that ship is. So sometimes I do find myself constantly clicking on the wrong system, which can be a little bit annoying. So I'm going to show you guys the way that combat works. The way combat works is very similar to games like EU4, where you basically build up a fleet. So go ahead and select my fleet here. So this is the fleet that I have. You can see I have a number of different types of ships. I've got 21 corvettes, I have a frigate, I have 15 destroyers, and I have a cruiser. And all of the ships are listed here. We can go in and have a look at them individually. We can see their individual statistics. We can see what modules they have on them. We can disband them. We can split this fleet up. We can merge it together. We can change its stance. We can upgrade it. And this is something that's very, very important, because what this game allows you to do is it has a ship designer. So each race has the same types of ships. You basically start with corvettes. You move up from corvettes to destroyers, then into cruisers, and then eventually into battleships. And all of these ships can be customized. You can put different weapons on them. You can put different energy and defensive modules on, such as shields and armor and point defense systems, as well as utility items such as better thrusters and better drives and better radar and things like that. So defeating the enemy isn't just a matter of having more ships than they do. You do have to have the right counters to your enemy's technology. So if you remember when I was showing you how you could create your own race, you basically have three types of weapon that you can use. You have energy weapons, you have explosive weapons like nuclear missiles, and you have ballistic weapons like basically coil guns or rail guns. And each of these different types of weapon has its own different defense or counter. So energy weapons are countered by using shields, but kinetics weapons and explosive weapons will pretty much go straight through shields. Kinetics weapons are countered by having armor on your ship. So if we go here, you can see I have the option to put on armor. So armor will protect against the damage from kinetic weapons. And if you want to protect against explosive weapons, then you need to have point defense systems on your ship, and those point defense systems will shoot down those missiles as they come in. So it's not just about having higher numbers. It's quite possible to win a battle with a smaller fleet if you have the right configuration. And you can go ahead in this ship designer and you can customize all of these ships. You can have as many different designs in here as you want. You can pick different hull parts for these ships. Each of them have different numbers of module slots available. This will be instantly familiar to you if you've played other 4X games such as Endless Space, or even if you've played EVE Online. It's a very similar system to configuring your ship there. If you don't want to mess around with all of this micromanagement, you can just use the auto-generate ship designs, and the computer will try and figure out the best bang for your buck. It'll give you the most powerful weapons it can and the best armor it can, and basically squeeze every last ounce of power out of the ship. Of course, the more stuff you put on it, the more expensive it becomes. Now, beyond that, combat itself is actually quite simple. You don't really have to do an awful lot with it, so I'll go ahead and show you how it works. I've sent my military fleet into this red exclamation mark. It's going to be dealing with a space amoeba. It's not going to take an awfully long time to do it. Now, one thing that is worth noting is, even though this game is played in a sort of a 2D mode, you can actually move the camera around. You can actually tilt the axis of the camera, and you can also spin it around and look from different directions. So you do have that option to get the impression that the game is played in a 3D space where it really isn't all that much. Let's just unpause the game and we'll let our fleet go and arrive at this star system here. We do have a admiral aboard, so he's going to help with this. So we've now arrived in this star system. Now, what you will have noticed here is what we actually did is we travelled from one star to another. There we go, I've just pressed D and it's not gone to the right place. So we've travelled from this star to this star, and this is because we're playing the humans. The humans have warp drive. This is one of the things that makes this game very, very interesting, are those 3 different types of travel. So warp drive essentially allows you to travel from one star to the next star. You can pretty much go from any star to any other star. If you go to a star system, you'll see all of these different arrows, and they point to all the neighbouring stars that you can reach via your warp drive. Once you arrive in the system, it does take a few days for your power to recharge before you can start moving again, so it's quite slow to move around using warp, but you can pretty much go anywhere. The other types of movement are hyperlanes. If you are using hyperlane technology, you can only move between star systems that have hyperlanes linking them up, and that's very, very similar to something like endless space. Now, I can't see any of the hyperlanes on my map because I'm not playing a race that uses them. Moving through hyperlanes allows you to travel a lot more quickly. However, it does have the downside that you can only travel on the hyperlane. So if you want to get from this system to this system, for example, there might not be a hyperlane between them. The closest hyperlane might be over here and then back again, so you might have to go the long way around. And then the third option is wormholes, and in order to use wormholes you actually have to have these things here. These are wormhole stations. This is one that my vassal has built, and we should be able to see it over here. There we go, that is a wormhole station, and wormhole stations basically allow fleets to open a wormhole and jump to pretty much any star system within a radius of the wormhole generator. So you have to either have a wormhole generator on the receiving end to fly to, or you have to have a wormhole generator at your departure point where you are flying from. So the good thing about this is it allows you to travel great distances very, very quickly, but the downside is you do need to go and build these wormhole generators, and also if they get destroyed it can leave your crew and your fleet stranded. So let's go back into our fleet over here and we'll have a look at what we need to do. So you can see here we've got this space amoeba that we need to deal with. Now we can see that the number shows its military power. It has 452 military power compared to the 3k that my fleet has down here. Let's go and zoom in. You can see all of my ships here. So they are all quite nicely modelled. And you can see by looking at the tag here, let's just pause the game up again. You can see that I have 1 cruiser, I've got 15 sort of mid-sized ships and 21 small ships right there. And it says that my military power is 3k. If we look over here, you can actually see that it's 3,401. We have 57 ships in total. Well, we don't have 57 ships, but our naval usage is 57, because some of our ships actually use more than 1 capacity. So the cruiser, for example, uses 3, the what are these? Destroyers use 2, the corvettes use 1. Our fleet size, our naval capacity, is actually 89, so you can increase that as time goes on so you can have bigger and bigger fleets. Let's go ahead and unpause the game and we will select our fleet and we'll move the camera around so I can see the amoebas. We'll zoom out and we're going to go and tell these guys that we want them to attack. So they're going to start moving in now. And get the camera in a better position. This is going to go very, very easily in my way. Space amoebas are one of those almost like barbarians in Civilization. They're a random alien race that sort of hangs around in certain systems, and destroying them can be quite useful because that allows you to get various boosts to research and technology from them. So let's just go ahead and speed the game up. Like I said that you can increase the speed of the game if there's not much going on. So this is the fastest speed. We're about to arrive. And there's the autosave, so I'm just going to go and slow this down to normal speed. And this will basically show you how the battles play out. So here we go, the battle's started. Just going to quickly pause up. You can instantly see here, the blue line represents my odds, the red line represents those. This is a tide of battle. It's definitely going to go my way. You can see some details about what's going on in the battle down here, so we'll just let these guys engage quickly. So as you can see, I'm not really controlling any of the fleets. Everyone is manoeuvring automatically and they're all starting to fire. We'll let a few shots get exchanged and then we'll quickly go and pause up. So we'll just pause there, and as you can see, these poor old space amoebas are starting to take some damage. Their health is going down rather rapidly. My ships have shields. Most of my ships haven't even had their shields damaged. I can't do anything with these ships individually. The only thing that I can do as a fleet is retreat, doing an emergency faster than light jump, which will jump me out of battle to the closest star system, and it will cause a little bit of damage to all of my ships. If you look down here at the bottom, you can see some more details. My accuracy is 98%, so I'm hitting 98% of my shots. I'm also evading 60% of the enemy shots. Their accuracy is only 40%, and they're only evading 1% of my shots. You can see down here at the bottom that I've done no damage with kinetic weapons, because they're fairly short range and we're not close enough yet. And you can see how much damage I've done with energy weapons and how much I've done with explosive weapons. They haven't really done any damage at all yet. You can see that I've taken 1 damage to my armour, 44 damage to my shields, and no damage to my hull. Whereas they don't have any shields, their armour's pretty much getting bypassed, and it's doing all the damage to their hull. So we'll just go ahead and unpause this, let the battle finish off. And there we go, that was a nice easy battle, and that has left some debris in the form of this little yellow exclamation mark. And what we can do now is we can send one of our science ships over to that and get some research from it. And we can also then click repair fleet and send our ships back to the closest spaceport in order to be able to repair. So that's basically the game in a nutshell. Like I said, if you're familiar with games like Civilization or Endless Legend, Endless Space, Galactic Civilizations, you're going to be able to pick this game up very, very easily. Now, I'm sure there are a lot more complexities to the way certain things work. It depends how much you want to min-max. But I would say that if you're going into this game with the hopes that it's going to be like EU4 or CK2, if you like that level of overcomplexity, if you like that depth to the mechanics, I think you might find that you're a little bit underwhelmed by the mechanics of this game. However, if you're just looking for a 4X game, maybe something to replace or to supplement Civilization or Endless Legend and things like that, I think this is a very, very good game to do that. Like I said, there have been some mentions of performance problems, although it hasn't been something that I have personally noticed. I haven't discovered any game-breaking bugs with the game so far, even though this is a pre-release press version. I have noticed a few little spelling errors, typos, and a couple of little bugs with text and things in some of the pop-ups that you get from the events. But while it does sort of mess with the immersion a little bit, it doesn't really ruin the game for me. I've had a lot of fun playing this. I've put over 20 hours into it so far. Despite the fact that it is a strategy game, the graphics I still think are absolutely gorgeous. It's very, very difficult to make a space-based game look very pretty, because most of things are sort of black and grey and dark green, but they've done a very, very good job of making everything look good. Again, especially when you're actually going and looking at your fleets, the design quality of the models is absolutely fantastic, and that is something that I do like. The music's also fantastic as well, so it's a really, really good soundtrack. The mechanics are solid. It doesn't really bring anything very new to the table. If you are used to other games in the 4X genre, you're not going to notice any mechanics here and go, oh wow, that's really, really unique, that's really, really new, apart from the fact that it just doesn't play as a turn-based game. But the reason that most of these mechanics have been around for so long in different 4X games, and you'll find them in many, many 4X games that all do the same thing, is because these mechanics just work, and they're often the best way of achieving a certain outcome. And I think what Paradox have done here is they've taken the best of all of them and tried to put them together, and they've also added in their own mix of things as well. The other thing that makes it very similar to their other games is that if you actually go and speak to some of the other races that you have met, so we can go ahead and speak to another race, we can communicate with them. So you've got the ability to obviously declare war on other nations, which you would expect in any sort of strategy game. Now, unlike a game like Civilization, where you just declare war and keep fighting and taking cities as you go, this system works more like it does in Europa Universalis, where you actually have to declare at the start of the war what your intentions are, what your war goals are, and the game will give you an amount of war score that you need to achieve in order to be able to force them to do it. So that is quite a nice little system there. Let's just go back in and speak to these guys again. So you can also make alliances, or you can make federations if you have the right tech for it. You can become a vassal, you can offer trade deals. So if we go in here and have a look what you can do, you can obviously exchange your various different resources, as well as giving someone worlds, border access. You can exchange information such as star charts or your sensor data. You can go for non-aggression pacts, you can get science agreements. So there's quite a lot of things that you can do in terms of diplomacy, but I still don't think it's quite to the level of CK2 and EU4, but there again, it's probably a little bit more in-depth than things like Civilization. So there is definitely a happy medium. I can certainly say that, yes, the game does take both from Grand Strategy and from 4X, but it's definitely more of a 4X than it is a Grand Strategy. But you should by no means let that put you off, because I think it is an absolutely fantastic game. I've been having an awful lot of fun playing it over the last week or so. I'm definitely going to be playing it a lot more. I think there's a lot more to see and do. The only thing that I find disappointing about it at the moment is there are only those 2 victory types. I would really love to see some victories that didn't involve having to go all out aggressive and actually take over enemy empires. I'd like to see victory conditions that can be done peacefully, because if you're playing as a pacifist, maybe you don't want to go to war. I want to be able to see science victories for the science focused races. I want to be able to see cultural victories. I want to be able to see quest based victories. All of that stuff is possible. It might be that it is already planned further down the line for a DLC or expansion or something like that, but I really think that is something that should have been included in the base game. Overall though, in conclusion, I would say that Stellaris is a brilliant strategy game. It's a bit more complicated than your average 4X, so if you're looking for a little bit of a change from the 4Xs you might have been playing for a while now, and particularly if you're looking for something that is space themed, because there's not a huge amount of decent space themed 4X or Grand Strategy games out there, then this might certainly be worth you taking a look at. So if you're interested in seeing more gameplay from this particular game, I do actually have a series on the channel which is playing as my Chinor Stellar Union custom race, and it is still my first campaign really, so I am working out how certain mechanics work as I go through with that, but you'll be able to follow the game through, get an idea of the gameplay from start to finish. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you have found the information useful, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye for now.